Hey folks, just a quick bit of housekeeping. You might notice that I sound different than I did in my last video for Transport Evolved. It's a bit of a long story and I explained all about it in a video for our Take 2 channel that I'll link in the description below. Moving on. Whenever Tesla's combination adaptive cruise control and lane centering system, Autopilot, comes up in a video, the comments section inevitably ends up chock full of discussion about whether the name Autopilot is appropriate for the technology. So let's take a few minutes and talk about what Tesla Autopilot is and isn't, as well as what Autopilot means more broadly outside of the Tesla context. Then I'll wrap up with some thoughts about whether the name fits or not. First things first. Tesla didn't invent what they call autopilot as a concept. Most major car companies have had some sort of adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist or lane centering system for years, with adaptive cruise control dating back to the late 90s and lane keep assist coming about in the early to mid-aughts, though those early lane keep systems weren't nearly as capable as the modern lane centering systems we see today. While Tesla's implementation of adaptive cruise control may not be anything unusual, its partnership with Mobileye, and after that ended Tesla's in-house work, definitely contributed to its industry-leading capabilities when it comes to lane centering, or what Tesla calls autosteer. When engaged, Tesla Autopilot uses a suite of ultrasonic sensors, radar sensors and cameras to read a vehicle's surroundings. Using those inputs, the vehicle will keep itself centered in the lane it's traveling in, and usually maintain a set speed. The autosteer portion of Autopilot generally uses the painted lane markings to determine the bounds of a lane, though on roads with a high contrast between the pavement surroundings, such as black tarmac and a sandy shoulder, the system usually operates just fine even if there's no painted marking for the shoulder side of the road. Unlike lane centering systems I've personally used before, such as those from BMW, Autopilot looks ahead and can cope well with interruptions where lane markings stop for a brief stretch, such as going through an intersection, and it can even read worn, faded or damaged markings quite well, though that can cause it to struggle when lane markings have been redone in a different location, such as a lane shift on the highway to accommodate roadwork. On the speed side, like most EVs, Tesla's cruise control does a great job of holding to a set speed, but being an adaptive cruise control, there are several things that will cause the speed to deviate from what the driver has set. First, if the vehicle in front is travelling at less than a set speed, the car will instead maintain a set distance, which can be customised by the driver, until the vehicle in front moves out of the car's path or accelerates past the set speed. Unlike some adaptive cruise systems, Tesla's cruise control will bring the car to a full stop and resume driving without any driver input needed. Second, if a pedestrian or other obstacle comes into the path of travel, the system will attempt to come to a stop to avoid a collision. And third, if the vehicle enters a turn with autopilot online, not just cruise control, and the car determines the curve is too sharp for the speed the car is going, it will slow down while turning and then resume the speed it was set to. There is one last situation where the car will make a speed change. Tesla's navigation system is programmed with the speed limits of many roads, and if autosteer is online, the autopilot system usually won't allow the adaptive cruise control to be set to more than 5 miles an hour, or 8 kilometers per hour, above what it thinks the speed limit is. If the speed limit drops while autosteer is online, or the system thinks it has, it will automatically reduce speed to 5 miles an hour above what it thinks the new speed limit is. I've been living in rural Maine, and it's pretty common for the system to have no speed limit information available, in which case there isn't a limit on what I can set the speed to. I'll also note that it's annoying as hell when the actual speed limit is something like 50 miles an hour, but the system thinks it's 35, a common problem on a local road here that renders autosteer unusable, though I can still use cruise control if I want. So Autopilot keeps the Tesla centered in its lane and controls the speed in the ways I've described. That's pretty much the whole system. For safety, it requires you to keep your hands on the wheel most of the time, with a torque sensor designed to pick up on small steering inputs to assure Autopilot you're still there. In practice, this works out only so-so, with the driver having to make small, meaningless inputs on long straight roads to avoid the system becoming upset. Learning to keep inputs small enough to reassure the system without them being so big as to disengage Autopilot is a dance every Tesla driver has to get used to, though that's not unique to Tesla. We had the same issue with lane keep assist on our old Hyundai Kona EV. Tesla also offers a much more sophisticated, higher level of autonomy system that the company misleadingly calls full self-driving, which uses the same sensors and cameras as Autopilot, but is vastly more capable with features such as the ability to input a destination in navigation and have the car handle all the driving operations, including going through intersections, dealing with traffic, changing lanes, taking highway exits, etc. That system is still in beta, though some functionality is already available for people who've purchased it. From demonstrations I've seen, though I've never used the system personally, it looks very good. That said, all of us here at Transport Evolved still feel the name full self-driving is misleading, as the system requires the same constant attention and immediate readiness to assume manual control that autopilot does, while the name implies the driver isn't a required part of the equation since the car is capable of, quote, full self-driving. Okay, that's Tesla Autopilot. Let's switch gears and talk about the origins of the name Autopilot, that is to say, the semi-autonomous systems used in aviation and nautical settings. Autopilot and airplanes date back more than 100 years to the 19-teens, when the Sperry Corporation first debuted what is recognisably an autopilot system by today's standards. It was capable of holding a plane on an established heading at an established altitude and speed without pilot input. By the Second World War, those systems had grown in sophistication, and with the integration of sensors and ground-based radio, autopilot enabled night and bad weather flying in a way that hadn't been safe before. As early as 1947, virtual autonomy was technically possible, with an Air Force cargo plane flying an entire route from takeoff to landing entirely under autopilot control. Improvements in onboard sensors, global positioning satellite navigation, instrument landing systems at airports, and other technological innovations have steadily increased the capabilities of modern aircraft autopilot, particularly in commercial aviation, where it isn't unusual for systems to accept a series of waypoints or a set course and navigate that route without the need for part intervention. Similarly, auto-land systems, a subset of autopilot, are common in commercial aircraft today, though most parts as a rule prefer landing their planes manually, a practice encouraged by many airlines. Even in small private aircraft, some form of autopilot, even if it's a little more capable than the original Sperry design, is common. I'm not as knowledgeable about sea-going autopilot systems, but many are at least as capable as Sperry's early design, and depending on the vessel it's attached to, features like GPS station keeping, current compensation, and waypoint navigation are far from unheard of. So then, what are we to make of autopilot as a name for Tesla's adaptive cruise control and lane centering / autosteering system? There are two sides from which we can look at this question, which is where the arguments in our comments section tend to stem from. There's accuracy and then there's perception. On the accuracy front, we immediately run into a problem. Driving on a street isn't analogous to being in the three-dimensional space occupied by aircraft, and it isn't really analogous to being at sea either. The most notable thing about Tesla Autopilot is its lane-centering autosteer system, which doesn't really have an aviation or nautical equivalent. That said, there's a critical element that Tesla's Autopilot and aviation autopilot systems have in common, and that's the relationship between the user and the system. At least in commercial aviation, it's understood that autopilot systems are not intended for unsupervised use, with at least one pilot at all times required to maintain situational awareness and attention to their flight instruments, ready to assume manual control at any time. Similarly, Tesla has been extremely clear that when a vehicle is operating with Tesla Autopilot, or in fact Tesla Full Self-Driving online, the driver needs to be aware of their surroundings, as well as the car's speed, place in the lane, relationship to other vehicles, and they should be ready to take control at any moment. The pilot flying an aircraft on autopilot and a driver using Tesla's system of the same name both have a similar proactive role requiring constant attention. And that's the number one reason people tell me in the comments on our videos that Tesla's choice name Autopilot is accurate. But then there's also the matter of perception. Before we even get to people's perception of Tesla's various driver assist systems, there's the fact that many people seemingly have no clear sense of how autopilot is or isn't employed in aviation. While the technical capabilities of autopilot in aviation, and perhaps in nautical applications, are reasonably well known, the nuances of how people are trained to use those systems and their limitations aren't nearly as widely discussed. A quick Google search will tell you that yes, modern autopilot can land a plane, but that same search may not provide good information on why many pilots choose to land manually, nor will it explain how to land a plane on a runway without compatible ground-based equipment. Even without the comparison to aviation and nautical autopilot systems though, there are good reasons to be dubious about the use of the term autopilot for Tesla's system, and it's right there in the name. There's good data that the use of auto in the name for what is an assistance system can lead to over-reliance and overconfidence in the system's capabilities by its users. There's a colloquial understanding that auto is short for automatic, or perhaps in modern use autonomous, when in fact the system is in no way an automatic pilot or driver. Don't get me wrong, Tesla's Autopilot and similar modern driver assistance systems from other manufacturers are on the balance a good thing in my mind, as for that matter are modern autopilot systems in aviation and ocean navigation. Humans are ridiculously flawed as operators of heavy machinery. We're easily distracted and our performance is subject to an incredible range of outside influences. Using these systems makes us, our passengers, and the people on the roads with us safer. But short of full-on autonomy, and I mean the kind that doesn't require a steering wheel or pedals to be present, and which, outside of a geofenced area, is still a very long way from being a reality, humans and our assistance systems have to work well together. That's a tricky thing to figure out, as we're seeing in aviation right now. Designing workload-reducing systems that don't encourage complacency is ridiculously difficult. And that's what Tesla's Autopilot, and indeed its so-called full self-driving systems are. Workload reducers, not replacements for an active and engaged driver. Good human-machine integration needs to start with setting appropriate expectations, and the name Autopilot doesn't do that for a road-going automobile. Some people will set out to abuse these systems no matter what, and I don't think the name matters to them. But far more people could find themselves getting in trouble because they trust the automation beyond its design limits, or let themselves get complacent and lose situational awareness. For every person climbing out of their sunroof while their car's running under the control of GM's Super Cruise, there's going to be plenty of people who let themselves look at their phone or find their minds wandering, secure in the knowledge that Autopilot is holding their speed in place on the road. It's a frankly understandable thing to do, and I'm not immune to the temptation. Tesla Autopilot exists in a kind of uncanny valley of competence. It's hard to overstate just how good the system is 90% of the time. And I've occasionally found myself falling into the dangerous mental state of feeling more like a passenger in my Model 3 than the driver. But that last 10%, where the system is, in fact, unable to properly interpret and respond to road conditions, can pop up at any moment, and it needs a driver to take control in an instant. As semi-autonomous driving systems become more widespread, that's the situation we need to be most concerned about, and setting appropriate expectations is the place that starts. Regardless of how accurate the name Autopilot might or might not be on a technical level, it sets the wrong expectations for the driver when they engage it. That's reason enough for Tesla to think about a different nomenclature, and it applies 10 times over to what Tesla currently calls full self-driving. That's it for today. As always, thanks to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month patrons. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, Anonymous Freak, Regine Fellows, Gordon C., Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Denny Hyde, Sean Ueda, and Tesla in the Gong. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, and Ian. If you'd like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, you'll find links below to Patreon, Bitcoin, and Ko-fi. You can also chat with the team and TE fans over at Discord, and if you'd like to buy some Transform Evolve swag, just head over to our Redbubble store. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!